Hi everyone, welcome back. In previous lecture we have created employee JPA entity. In this lecture we are going to create employee repository. So let's go to our project in IntelliJ IDEA and go to repository package over here. Right click on repository package, new, and then choose Java class. Select interface. Let us give interface name as employee repository. Next, let us extend this employee repository interface from JPA repository interface and make sure that you choose JPA repository interface from org.springframework.data.jpa.repository package. Well, notice here JPA repository is a generic interface, so we have to pass two parameters. First parameter is the type of the entity, second parameter is the type of the primary key. So let us select JPA repository over here and let us pass the parameters. First parameter as a type of the entity, in our case employee entity. Next, let us pass the type of the primary key, that is long. Well, if you go to employee JPA entity, you can see here we have given the type to the primary key ID as a long. So this long data type we are passing to JPA repository as a second parameter. Okay, perfect. Well, once our employee repository interface extends JPA repository interface, then this employee repository will get a CRUD methods to perform CRUD database operations on this employee JPA entity. Alright, so if you go to JPA repository interface source code, you can see JPA repository interface provides these methods, and again JPA repository interface extends list CRUD repository interface, and list CRUD repository interface provides all these methods, and this list CRUD repository method internally extends CRUD repository interface, and this CRUD repository interface exposes CRUD methods to perform CRUD database operations. Alright, it means this JPA repository will inherit all the methods from all the extended interfaces. And again, Spring Data JPA will provide the implementation for this JPA repository interface. For example, if you click on this, you will get the implementation classes. And here, simple JPA repository is a class that implements all the methods of JPA repository interface and its child interfaces. So just click on simple JPA repository class over here, and you can see simple JPA repository class implements JPA repository implementation interface, and this interface internally extends JPA repository interface. It means simple JPA repository indirectly implements JPA repository interface and its methods. Alright, and if you can notice here, simple JPA repository class, it is already annotated with add repository annotation, so we don't have to annotate our repository interface with add repository annotation. For example, if you go to employee repository, we don't have to annotate this employee repository interface with add repository annotation, because the implementation class, that is simple JPA repository class, is already annotated with add repository annotation. And here one more important point is simple JPA repository class annotated with add transactional annotation. It means all the methods in a simple JPA repository class are by default transactional. We don't have to use again add transactional annotation in a service layer to make the methods as a transactional. Okay, for example, if you just scroll down, you can see delete by ID method is a transactional because it is annotated with add transactional annotation, and delete method is a transactional because it is annotated with add transactional annotation. Alright, so all the public methods in a simple JPA repository class are transactional, so we don't have to again use add transactional annotation to make these methods transactional. Alright, just remember these couple of important points, like simple JPA repository is a class that implements JPA repository interface, and simple JPA repository class, it is already annotated with add repository annotation, so we don't have to again annotate our repository interfaces with add repository annotation. And simple JPA repository class is annotated with add transactional annotation, so all the methods, all the public methods in a simple JPA repositories are by default transactional. We don't have to again make those methods transactional by using add transactional annotation. Alright, perfect. So let me recap what we have done in this lecture. We have created employee repository interface that extends JPA repository interface. So this employee repository will get CRUD methods to perform CRUD database operations on employee JPA entity. In next lecture, we will create an employee DTO and employee mapper classes. Alright, great. I will see you in the next lecture.